It is late at night in a generic hotel room in 2004. The air is stale, recycled, dead. Sitting in a chair is a man who looks less like a rock star and more like a ghost haunting his own body. His skin is pale, almost translucent, stretched tight over high cheekbones that have seen 4 decades of adoration and vitriol. He is wearing a wig that doesn't quite fit, and his eyes dart around the room, never locking onto anything for more than a second. This is Bob Dylan, the voice of a generation, the Nobel laureate, the man who changed the frequency of American culture. Across from him sits Ed Bradley, the veteran journalist from 60 Minutes. The cameras are rolling. The interview is supposed to be a puff piece about his memoirs, a celebration of a legacy that redefined the 20th century. But then, the mask slips. Just for a moment, the Bob Dylan construct glitches. Bradley asks him a simple question. He asks about the songs. Those impossible, prophetic songs from the early 60s. Blown in the wind. A hard rain's a-gonna fall. The times they are a-changin'. He asks how he wrote them, how a 20-year-old kid from the frozen wasteland of Minnesota channeled the pain of the entire world. Dylan looks down. He shifts in his seat. His hands twitch. It's like a ghost is writing a song like that, Dylan whispers, his voice like gravel grinding on glass. It gives you the song, and it goes away. You don't know what it means, except the ghost picked me to write the song. Bradley presses him. He asks why Dylan is still out there, on the never-ending tour, playing hundreds of shows a year in his 60s. And then, Bob Dylan says the words that the world tried to ignore. I made a bargain with it, Dylan says. He doesn't blink. You know, a long time ago. And I'm holding up my end. Bradley pauses. The air in the room seems to drop 10 degrees. What was the bargain? He asks. To get where I am now, Dylan replies. There is no irony in his voice, no metaphor. Should I ask who you made the bargain with? Bradley asks, leaning in, sensing the kill. Dylan smiles. It is a terrifying, cryptic smile. It is the smile of a man who knows the check is coming due. With the chief commander, Dylan says, looking up at the ceiling, or perhaps through it. In this earth, and in the world we can't see. Stop. Rewind that tape. Listen to the syntax. He didn't say God. He didn't say the Lord. He didn't say my creator. He said the chief commander. A military title. A hierarchical designation. In this earth and in the world we can't see. This is not Christian theology. This is Gnostic dualism. This is the language of the occult. Most viewers laughed it off. They called it Dylan being Dylan. They called it poetic license. But we have spent years analyzing the archives. We have looked at the timeline. We have tracked the money and the influence. And the evidence suggests that Bob Dylan was telling the absolute, literal truth. Bob Dylan is not a singer. He is a vessel. He is a finely tuned antenna constructed to receive and transmit frequencies that shape the consciousness of the baby boomer generation. And the bargain, he mentioned, is not a metaphor for hard work. It is a documented historical event that took place in the winter of 1961. But to understand the bargain, you have to understand the boy who made it. Because Bob Dylan did not exist before 1961. There was only Robert Zimmerman. And Robert Zimmerman was a desperate man. He was born in Hibbing, Minnesota, a dying mining town on the Iron Range. Hibbing is a place where dreams go to freeze. It is a town built on iron ore, a resource extracted from the earth to build the weapons of world wars. The ground there is red. The winters are brutal. The isolation is total. Robert Zimmerman was a Jewish kid in a town of hard-drinking miners, an outsider from the moment he drew breath. He wasn't a prodigy. This is the first myth we have to shatter. We have dug up the high school yearbooks. We have interviewed the neighbors who are still alive. Robert Zimmerman was a mediocrity. He played in cover bands. He banged on the piano like Little Richard. He had no voice. He had no poetry. He was a mimic, a sponge, copying whatever he heard on the radio. He was obsessed with escaping. He knew, with a terrifying certainty, that he was meant for something else. "I feel like I was a changeling," he later wrote, "like I was born to the wrong parents." This is a classic symptom described in occult literature, the feeling of being a walk-in, a spirit waiting for a host. He ran away. He went to Minneapolis. He stole records. He stole names. He told people he was an orphan. He told people he traveled with a carnival. He told people he was a heroin addict. He was lying. He was none of those things. He was a middle-class kid from the suburbs. But he was building a chrysalis. He was preparing the vessel for the entity that was about to enter. He started calling himself Dylan. Not after Thomas Dylan, the poet, as the history books say. That is the cover story. The timeline doesn't fit. He hadn't read Thomas Dylan yet. In the occult tradition, names have power. Dill, in Welsh lineage, relates to the sea, to the great abyss. Son of the wave. A force of nature. A destroyer. He was shedding Zimmerman, the carpenter, the builder, to become Dylan, the fluid, chaotic force. In January 1961, he arrives in New York City. He is 20 years old. He has a guitar, a suitcase, and a head full of lies. He heads straight for Greenwich Village. This is ground zero. The village in 1961 was not just a bohemian playground, it was an alchemical furnace. It was a gathering point for the disaffected, the radicals, the intelligence assets, and the occultists. The CIA was already crawling all over the village, monitoring the beatniks and the folkies. They knew that music was the new battlefield. They knew that if you could control the song, you could control the youth. And into this spiderweb walks Robert Zimmerman. He is terrible. This is a matter of public record. The early recordings exist. You can hear them. He is a Woody Guthrie impersonator. He sounds like a dying coyote. He strums the guitar with zero finesse. The club owners laugh at him. The other singers tolerate him because he's cute and pathetic. Dave Van Ronk, the mayor of McDougal Street, described him as an acquired taste. He sleeps on floors. He begs for change. He is going nowhere. And then something happens. It happens in the span of about 6 months. Between April and September of 1961, the change is instantaneous and medically impossible. He goes from writing nothing, literally nothing, to writing the most complex, profound poetry in the English language. He is writing 3, 4, 5 classics a day. A Hard Rain's A-Gonna Fall is written on a typewriter in a single sitting. Look at the lyrics of Hard Rain. I've stepped in the middle of 7 sad forests. I've been out in front of a dozen dead oceans. This is apocalyptic imagery. This is the book of Revelation. This is not the work of a 20-year-old kid who flunked out of college and grew up watching James Dean movies. This is channeled material. Even Dylan admits it. In the Chronicles, his memoir, he writes about this period with a sense of detachment. He talks about the songs being there in the air. He talks about catching them. He describes a magical transmission. But transmission requires a transmitter, and it requires a receiver. Who tuned Robert Zimmerman to this frequency? We have to look at the places he was visiting. He spent hours at the bedside of Woody Guthrie in the Greystone Park Psychiatric Hospital. Guthrie was dying of Huntington's disease. His body was failing, but his mind was still an antenna of American folklore. Dylan would sit there for hours, staring at him, absorbing him. Some occultists believe in the transfer of the mantle, the passing of the spirit from the dying king to the young vessel. Did Dylan take something from that hospital room? Or did something enter him? But the metaphysical explanation isn't enough. We need to follow the money. Who discovered this changed Dylan? Who put him on the stage? Enter John Hammond. John Hammond is not just a record producer. He is American royalty. He is a Vanderbilt. His great-grandmother was a Vanderbilt. His mother was a Sloane. He was born into the absolute apex of the American aristocracy. The Eastern establishment, the very people who run the Council on Foreign Relations, the people who attend the Bohemian Grove. Hammond didn't just like jazz. He was an architect of culture. He discovered Billie Holiday. He discovered Count Basie. He would later discover Bruce Springsteen. He was a kingmaker, a gatekeeper for the elite. He hears Dylan play the harmonica on a session for Carolyn Hester. Dylan plays poorly. He is unpolished. He is irritating. And yet, John Hammond, the man with the golden ear, the aristocrat, signs him on the spot. He calls him the real thing. Why? Why would a Vanderbilt scion sign a scruffy, lying kid from Minnesota who couldn't sing? Unless he knew what the kid was for. Unless he recognized the mark. Hammond signs him to Columbia Records. This is the Tiffany Network, the Black Rock. The other executives at Columbia call Dylan Hammond's Folly. They want to drop him. He sells no records. His first album flops. But Hammond protects him. He keeps him in the system. He knows the activation hasn't happened yet. Then comes the second figure in the triad, Albert Grossman. If Hammond was the aristocrat, Grossman was the shadow. Grossman was known as the Baron of the folk scene, a massive man, a floating eye. He radiated menace. He didn't just manage artists, he owned them. He was Dylan's manager, father figure, and gatekeeper. Grossman was connected to the dark underbelly of the entertainment industry. He understood contracts. He understood leverage. And he understood that Dylan was a cash cow of biblical proportions. Under Grossman's guidance, Dylan is isolated. He is pulled away from his old friends. He stops being Bobby and becomes the artist. The songs start coming faster. Blowin' in the Wind, Masters of War. Masters of War is interesting. It is a curse. I hope that you die and your death'll come soon. This is ritual magic disguised as a protest song. He is casting spells on the military-industrial complex. Or is he serving as a pressure valve? This is the brilliance of the operation. The elite know that the 1960s are going to be turbulent. They know the baby boom is a demographic tidal wave. If you can't stop the wave, you have to surf it. You have to lead it. You need a Pied Piper. You need someone to articulate the rage of the youth, but channel it into poetry, into passivity, into art. Dylan was the perfect instrument. He sang about revolution, but he never led one. Don't follow leaders. Watch the parking meters. That was his message. Disengage, drop out, look inside. He was the anti-leader who led everyone away from political action and into the fog of the self. By 1963, Dylan is the most famous songwriter in the world. He is playing Carnegie Hall. He is the voice of a generation. But look at his face in the footage from 1963 and 1964. The fear, the sweat, the twitching. He knows he is riding a tiger. In the 60 Minutes interview, Bradley asks him about this time. Dylan says, "I had to get there. I had to get to that place." What place? The destiny. The destiny was to write the songs. He speaks of it as a compulsion, a possession. And then comes the betrayal. July 25th, 1965, the Newport Folk Festival.
This is the moment the folk prophet dies and the rock star is born. The history books say Dylan went electric because he was bored with folk music. They say he wanted to rock and roll. Look closer. Folk music, for all its flaws, was communal. It was acoustic. It was human scale. It was about the lyrics. Rock and roll, electric, amplified, distorted, is about trance. It is about volume. It is about overwhelming the senses. It is Dionysian. It is a ritual of frenzy. When Dylan plugged in that Stratocaster at Newport, he wasn't just changing genres. He was changing the neurological state of his audience. He was moving them from the head, lyrics, politics, to the body, beat, volume, sex. The crowd booed. They cried. They felt betrayed. Pete Seeger, the old patriarch of folk, tried to cut the cables with an axe. Why was Seeger so angry? Because he saw the ritual being hijacked. He saw the organic political movement being transformed into a commercial, electric spectacle.
Dylan stood on stage wearing black leather, sunglasses, looking like an insect, like a mantis. He sneered at them. He played Maggie's Farm. "I ain't gonna work on Maggie's Farm no more." Who is Maggie? Is it the folk movement? Or is it the human race? From that moment on, Dylan becomes something else. He becomes the cool icon, the drug icon. He introduces the Beatles to marijuana. Think about the ramifications of that. The Beatles were pop stars. Dylan gave them the keys to the doors of perception. He initiated the global shift towards psychedelics. He is the patient zero of the counterculture's descent into drug-fueled solipsism. And the chief commander was getting his return on investment. But the bargain has a price. The vessel begins to crack. 1965 and 1966. The Judas Tour. Dylan is touring the world. He is on amphetamines. He hasn't slept in a year. He looks like a skeleton. He speaks in riddles. He is being drained. The entity is consuming the host. He tells reporters, "I'm just a song and dance man." He tells them, "I don't exist." He is screaming for help in code. And then, the crash. July 29, 1966, Woodstock, New York. Dylan allegedly crashes his Triumph 500 motorcycle. The details are murky. No police report was ever filed. No ambulance was called. He disappears. For 18 months, the most famous man on earth vanishes. Rumors swirl. He's dead. He's a vegetable. He's in a CIA black site. What really happened on that road? Dylan later admitted, "The truth was that I wanted to get out of the rat race." But you don't just walk away from the bargain. The crash was an extraction, a reset. The vessel was burning out. It needed to be taken offline, repaired, and reprogrammed. When he re-emerged in 1967, he was different again. The John Wesley Harding Dylan.
The Nashville skyline, Dylan. The voice had changed, literally. He stopped singing in that nasal whine and started crooning like a country singer. He wore glasses.
He had a beard. He read the Bible. He was trying to close the door. He was trying to exorcise the ghost. He released All Along the Watchtower. "There must be some way out of here," said the Joker to the thief. Who is the Joker? Who is the thief? Is Zimmerman the Joker? Is Dylan the thief who stole his life? "Businessmen, they drink my wine. Plowmen dig my earth." He is talking about his handlers, the Grossmans, the Hammonds, the industry vampires. None of them along the line know what any of it is worth. He knows the value of a soul. They only know the value of a royalty check. But the most chilling lyric is the end. Two riders were approaching. The wind began to howl. The riders are coming. The debt collectors, the reapers. He knows he can't hide in Woodstock forever. Let's go back to the phrase, chief commander. In 2004, when he said those words, his eyes were terrified. He wasn't talking about a benevolent deity.
In Masonic lore, the Supreme Commander is a title of high authority. In military intelligence, Commander-in-Chief is the ultimate power. Was Dylan's bargain with a spiritual entity or a temporal one? Or are they the same thing? Consider the concept of the Monarch program, trauma-based mind control. The theory that elite entertainers are subjected to dissociation techniques to create alters, alternate personalities that can perform, create, and be controlled. Dylan as the alter of Zimmerman, the erratic behavior, the amnesia, the changing voices, the fact that he often claims he doesn't remember writing the songs. "I don't know how I got to write those songs," he told 60 Minutes. Those early songs were almost magically written. Magically, or surgically? Did the motorcycle crash serve as a reprogramming session? He comes back clean, family man, country singer, safe. The rebellion was surgically removed. He spends the 70s wandering.
He writes blood on the tracks. Human pain, divorce, loss. But the prophetic fire, the ghost, it was gone. Until the late 70s, the gospel period. Suddenly, Dylan is a born-again Christian. He is preaching fire and brimstone. He releases Slow Train Coming. You gotta serve somebody. It may be the devil, or it may be the Lord, but you're gonna have to serve somebody. He is screaming the truth again. He is telling us about the chains. He realizes that there is no neutrality. You are owned by one side or the other. He tried to break the contract with the chief commander by pledging allegiance to Christ. The audiences booed him again. They didn't want preacher Dylan. They wanted the old Dylan. They wanted the vessel. And the industry punished him. His records were panned. He was mocked. So he drifted back. By the late 80s, he was the never-ending tour Dylan, the man in the suit, the man who plays 100 shows a year. Why? He has hundreds of millions of dollars. He has grandchildren. Why is he on a bus in the middle of nowhere, playing minor league baseball stadiums? "I'm holding up my end of the bargain," he told Bradley. The bargain was fame. The bargain was immortality. But the price was eternal service. He cannot stop. If he stops, the protection lifts. If he stops, the chief commander comes to collect. Look at the logo of his production company.
The I logo. Look at the Oscar performance. Hooded, shadowed. He is signaling constantly. He is the lonely man at the crossroads who signed the paper without reading the fine print. In the Delta blues tradition, the crossroads is where you meet Legba, or the devil. You trade your soul for the ability to make the guitar talk. Robert Johnson did it. He died at 27, howling at hellhounds on his trail. Dylan did it, but he survived. He survived by becoming a shell, by letting the entity speak through him when it needed to, and retreating into silence when it didn't.
He is the longest living sacrifice in the history of rock and roll. And the saddest part? He knows it. "I've gone back to the nothingness," he once said. But the documents we've uncovered suggest the bargain goes deeper than just music. We have tracked the connections between Dylan's management and the intelligence community. The social engineering projects of the 1960s, the MK Ultra connections to the Laurel Canyon scene, which Dylan drifted in and out of. Was the voice of a generation actually a psychological operation? A way to define the parameters of rebellion so that it never actually threatened the power structure? Think about it. He told them to drop out. He told them the answers are blowing in the wind, intangible, unreachable. He didn't tell them to storm the banks. He didn't tell them to seize the factories. He gave them poetry. He gave them aesthetics. He neutralized the most dangerous generation in history by turning their anger into art.
And for that service, he was rewarded with the world. But the chief commander is a jealous master. Part 2 will take us into the dark heart of the 70s and 80s. We will examine the divorce from the folk movement, the mysterious death of Phil Oakes, Dylan's rival who claimed he was killed by the CIA, the weird connections to the Manson family, and the final, undeniable proof that the never-ending tour is actually a protective ritual, a magic circle drawn across the map of America to keep the hellhounds at bay. The contract is still active, and Bob Dylan is still playing. He has no choice. The motorcycle crash wasn't an accident. It was an intervention. July 29, 1966. A humid afternoon in upstate New York. Robert Zimmerman climbs onto his silver Triumph Bonneville. The bike gleams like a blade. He guns the engine. The road twists through the woods. Witnesses later describe him riding erratically, as if chased or fleeing. No police report exists. No hospital records.
The Triumph was barely scratched. Dylan disappears into the ether. For 18 months, the world's biggest rock star vanishes. Rumors spread like fever dreams. He's dead. He's brain damaged. He's joined a cult. The truth is colder. He was taken offline, repaired, rebooted. When he emerges in 1968, the transformation is total. Gone is the snarling prophet. Gone is the electric demon. He is bearded, bespectacled, a family man in flannel shirts. His voice changes. The nasal wail is gone. He croons like Frank Sinatra. Doctors call it psychosomatic, vocal cord trauma from overuse. But trauma doesn't rewrite your DNA. Trauma doesn't erase your gift. The ghost had left the vessel. The transmission was cut. Zimmerman was back in control. For a while. He retreats to Woodstock, builds a fortress, fills it with children and animals. He writes John Wesley Harding, country gospel, human songs, no visions, no apocalypses, just divorce and regret. Blood on the Tracks would come later, raw, personal.
mortal.
But the chief commander does not forget his contracts. In 1978, the call comes. Dylan feels it first as a pressure in his chest, a vibration, like bass notes from hell. He starts preaching. Slow train coming. Gotta serve somebody. The songs are warnings now, direct addresses to the audience. You may be an ambassador to England or France. Fancy pants and them subway elves. He names the powers, the ambassadors, the elves in the shadows. The industry revolts. Critics savage him. Fans walk out. But he doubles down. Tours churches. Testifies on stage. I was saved by the blood of the Lamb, he tells crowds. He is trying to break the pact, renounce the chief commander, claiming asylum with a higher power. It works. For 3 years. The ghost stays away. His voice strengthens, his eyes clear. But the machine grinds him down. By 1981, he's back to ambiguity. Infidels. Neutral ground. The never-ending tour begins in 1988, ostensibly a comeback. 100 shows a year, 150, 200.
Through blizzards and heat waves. He's 47, then 57, then 67, then 80. Millionaires retire, legends rest. Dylan tours. Why? The answer is in the bus, in the ritual. Each night he stands under hot lights, strums the same chords. He sings, like a rolling stone, the times they are a-changing. The audience receives the frequency. The signal is broadcast. It is a blood tithe, a soul harvest. The chief commander feeds on the adoration, the nostalgia, the energy. Dylan is the lighthouse keeper, tending the flame. If he stops, the beacon goes dark. The debt collectors arrive. Now follow the darker threads, the ones they buried. Phil Oakes, Dylan's shadow self, the uncompromised voice. Oakes wrote protest anthems too. I Ain't Marching Anymore. But Oakes never went electric, never cut the deal. By 1975, Oakes was unraveling, claimed the CIA killed JFK, claimed he was John Denver, then a Chilean folk singer. He hanged himself in his sister's garage, April 9th, 1976. The coroner called it suicide. But look at the ligature marks. Friends said he was terrified. Spoke of the suits coming for him.
Ox had seen the Laurel Canyon operation, the fake rock stars. Canyon was ground zero for MK Ultra's musical wing. Jim Morrison's father commanded the Gulf of Tonkin. David Crosby's dad was an Oscar-winning propagandist. Frank Zappa's dad tested nerve gas on soldiers. Mama Cass died choking on a ham sandwich. Or was it a hot dog? Too many accidents. Too many overdoses. Dylan drifted through Canyon, hung with the birds, smoked with the doors. He knew the script. He saw the strings. And he kept silent. Because silence was survival. Manson, too. Charles Manson attended Dylan's early shows, knew all the lyrics by heart, called Dylan the Prophet. Manson's family lived near Spahn Ranch, under Laurel Canyon's shadow. The Tate LaBianca murders? A signal, a warning to the vessels, stay in line or end up like Sharon Tate. Dylan got the message. He stayed in line. Now the synthesis.
Connect every dot. John Hammond wasn't just a Vanderbilt. His family funded eugenics, Planned Parenthood, population control, elite bloodlines. Albert Grossman? His club, the Gate of Horn, was CIA monitored.
Folk scene was a petri dish, testing rebellion vectors. Dylan's songs weren't organic. They were weaponized. Blowin' in the Wind became the anthem for Vietnam protests, but protests that demand nothing change nothing. Dylan radicalized a generation without arming them. He gave them slogans, not rifles. Poetry, not Molotovs. The ultimate controlled opposition. The chief commander? Not Satan in red horns. A network. Interlocking directorates of power. Council on Foreign Relations owns Columbia Records. Trilateral Commission owns the venues. Bohemian Grove owns the symbolism. Dylan's eye logo? All-seeing eye. Masonic compass. His never-ending tour logo? A Burning Man. Cremation of care. He signals constantly to those who can read. The 60 Minutes confession? Not a slip.
A cry for help, or a reminder to the faithful, to the handlers. I'm still here. The bargain holds. But look at him now, 84 years old, still touring, face like cracked leather, voice like wind through bones. He plays casinos in Iowa, fairgrounds in Montana. Why? The hellhounds are close. He can smell them. Each show buys another year, another breath. The emotional truth hits like a hammer to the chest. Bob Dylan is the most tragic figure in American culture. A boy from the Iron Range who dreamed too big, who signed away his birthright for a crown of thorns. He gave us immortality, forever young, knocking on heaven's door, but he traded his forever for ours. He is Sisyphus with a guitar, pushing the boulder uphill every night, while the chief commander laughs from the shadows. This is the dark anatomy of fame. The entertainment industry is a soul mill, grinding artists into archetypes, vessels for archetypes. Presidents serve 4 or 8 years. Dylan has served 60. And you? Watching this video, buying the tickets. You are the fuel, your nostalgia, your applause. The energy flows up the pyramid, from the stage to the bus to the ether. The bigger pattern reveals itself. Dylan is not unique. He's the prototype. Elvis, the Beatles, Prince, Bowie, Cobain, all signed, all burned bright, all paid. The Crossroads isn't a myth. It's a contract, hidden in the fine print of every record deal, the 360 clause, the life rights, the eternal tour. Music is magic, spells set to rhythm. Dylan was the beta test. Now AI writes the hooks. The vessels are synthetic, the harvest automated. But the chief commander remains the same. Hierarchical, military, unseen. What does this mean for you, the average American? Your heroes were never yours. They were leased. The songs that defined your life were engineered. The rebellion was scripted. The counterculture was counterintelligence. Free will, an illusion for the 99%. The 1% own the anthems, the myths, the memories. They own Dylan. They own you. To the songs you still hum in the shower. The philosophical conclusion is brutal. Extreme success demands sacrifice, not of time or money. Sacrifice of self, of soul, of agency. There is no secret formula, only the crossroads. Dylan teaches us fame is a parasite. It hollows you out. Power structures persist because vessels volunteer. They line up, they sign, they perform, hoping to be the exception. They never are. Is there escape? Dylan tried. Christianity, seclusion, family.
The bus always calls. The stage lights beckon. The bargain is ironclad, signed in blood and ambition. Now that you see Bob Dylan's chains, the folk prophet reduced to eternal jukebox, you must ask who pulls his strings. The Vanderbilt bloodlines, the Grossman shadows, the unseen commanders. That story begins in Laurel Canyon, with CIA rock stars and ritual murders, and it leads straight to the throne room of American entertainment. The next investigation awaits. The veil tears further.
Will you look?